Hello. So this is going to be the second part of the Sleeping Beauty discussion. This one is going to involve, at the very least, the Once Upon a Time stuff. So Maleficent and Aurora there, and Maleficent's daughter, Lily Page, and then the Descendants stuff. So we'll be starting with Once Upon a Time. Um, we know that in at least one of the flashback bits, we get the Wicked Queen. We get Regina talking to Maleficent at some point. Um, and I don't remember exactly why, but I know that we deal with it. And then I also remember that we do get, after the curse is broken the first time, when they end up going back to the Enchanted Forest realm, that we see Aurora there with Prince Philip. Well, kind of. We see Prince Philip and Mulan. I don't know how he got paired up with Mulan, but Prince Philip and Mulan are, of course, trying to wake Aurora up. And we get the moment where, Prince Philip wakes Aurora up. And Aurora is the daughter of King Stephen, of course, and Queen Briar Rose. It does say in the story that she is the second Sleeping Beauty. I don't remember if that entirely means that her mother was Sleeping Beauty as well, and that, Maleficent, okay, I'm going to curse the mom. Didn't end up going well. I'm still going to curse the kid. Okay. I don't follow Disney villain logic, but whatever. And, yeah. Yeah, her mother was affected by the same curse, so that's where the Briar Rose and Aurora and everything. So Mulan and Prince Philip, well, Prince Philip is the one who wakes up Aurora. And we get a bit of, them getting, still being in love, of course, and them going on a journey to try to help people and everything. And this Aurora seems a little bit more determined to try to help people. From what I remember, there was like a section of the Enchanted Forest that got covered by some kind of shield spell or something like that from Cora that protected protected part of the forest from Regina's original curse. And Aurora and Philip, I think, were inside of that. And same thing with like Mulan and a bunch of other ones were inside of that part of the forest and protected from it, but they were kind of in an enchanted sleep or like frozen in time to a degree. And then, when the others return or when the original curse is broken in Storybrooke by Emma, that they kind of wake up and their time continues forward. So Aurora still slept for quite a while. We know, of course, the typical thing with Aurora, her and Philip get married. They do become pregnant. We do know that they interact with Neil at one point, so Balefire, Rumpelstiltskin's son. And we do know that they interact with Snow White, I believe, and Emma. I think they interact with them at one point. And we find out that, through certain flashbacks, of course, we find out that Regina and Maleficent have, kind of not always seen eye to eye. Maleficent's a freaking dragon, so I guess, you kind of got to look up really high if you want to see eye to eye with her. Yes, I am aware that that's a bad joke. So we get a lot of that. And at some point we get where all of the, there's like a second curse or something that, sends all of the others into the Enchanted Forest again from Storybrooke, because Regina's trying to counteract the curse from Peter Pan. So then it's just a weird thing to say. There's a lot of weird sentences that you say with Once Upon a Time. They're just like, okay. Like, Alice is the daughter of Captain Hook and Mother Gothel, and she's part fairy, and she's friends with Rumpelstiltskin, who's the Beast. And she marries the Wicked Queen, she marries the Wicked Witch of the West and Robin Hood's daughter. Weird sentence that outside of the context of Once Upon a Time does not make sense. Fair other things from Once Upon a Time that outside of the context of Once Upon a Time do not make sense. And we get, they have to interact, and, well, slightly going out of order here. As I said, it's still been a while since I've rewatched Once Upon a Time. I am using the wiki a lot for information on this, which is helpful, but there's still bits here and that are just like, okay, I don't remember which part of this happened first. So we get a lot of, you know, Aurora and Philip and Mulan are trying to rebuild certain parts of the Enchanted Forest, and you know that's when the rest of the Enchanted Forest all come back from Storybrooke because of Regina sending them back because of the curse, so they're not cursed again, and then they're sent back to the Enchanted Forest, and so then they interact with them quite a bit, and we actually learn throughout the course of the story that Mulan has feelings for Aurora. And I like how they did that. Mulan never, as far as I'm aware, Mulan does not actually confess her feelings to Aurora. I know at one point she tries, but then Aurora announces that her and Philip are pregnant, and Mulan is very happy for them because she's their friend and she wants them to be happy. And we'll get a little bit more to Mulan's story later on when we get to the Mulan movie, when we get to Mulan way down the line. But, you know, we get a whole bunch of stuff, and at some point, you know, we get a funny, well, at one point, everybody from the Enchanted Forest, including the ones who were not originally sent to Storybrooke, are sent to Storybrooke and cursed there again via Zelina's plot to do things. I don't remember exactly what the plot was, but via Zelina plot, Wicked Witch of the West plot to have revenge on her sister. Yeah. And that results in Aurora and Philip and Mulan and all the other ones getting sent to Storybrooke. And as I said, Aurora is pregnant at this point. And part of one of the things that Zelina does at some point is she turns a bunch of people into flying monkeys. And Aurora and Philip are two of the ones that get turned into flying monkeys. And they're trying to break Zelina's curse so that way, you know, they're trying to break the curse anyway because reasons, but also Aurora and Philip, if they don't get them back to normal, then she's going to give birth to a flying monkey, which I'm like, yeah, that's probably not a good idea. That's not good for the royal line. I don't particularly think people are going to like to have a flying monkey as their ruler. I don't know. I don't know. They might be very forward thinking in Aurora's kingdom, but I don't think that's going to be the case. But, you know, Aurora and Philip do get changed back because they defeat Maleficent, or, well, not Maleficent in this case. They defeat Zelina, and then they get turned back to normal and they have their baby. I do not remember what the baby's name is. And we get a lot of, well, they have the baby, and as I mentioned in the Cinderella video, Cinderella kind of has a parenting class, kind of also, you know, Cursed Realm 101 type thing for getting people who were cursed, not cursed the first time when they got sent through, so they don't have all this knowledge of how, you know, technology and phones and TV and cars and all that stuff works. So Aurora has to learn that. And double checking some of my notes. Sorry about that. There's bits where, you know, Aurora, well, they get the funny bit with Aurora interacting with Cinderella at, like, the parenting class. And Aurora and, like, Cinderella's like, well, you know, you can use, you know, the television and everything. And Aurora goes, I'm not using that demon box. And I just find that hilarious. I probably mentioned that in the Cinderella video, but I still like that. They get a whole bunch of other, you know, there's a lot of other stuff that Aurora and Philip and such are part of in Once Upon a Time. I'm glossing over a bunch of it because it's been a while since I've seen it, but they end up being together, of course, and having their baby and all that fun stuff. And at some point, Emma and Mary Margaret and Mulan have to work, or, well, Mulan's there too, but Aurora have to work together to solve whatever problem. I don't remember what the problem is, but they have to help with that. And there's like a beanstalk, and as I said, there's a lot of stuff with Once Upon a Time, and I'm just like, I don't exactly remember what happened first and second and this and that. So we get a lot of that fun stuff with Aurora and Philip and such. And, you know, Aurora and Philip eventually, I think Philip at some point gets cursed, and then Aurora has to wake him up, and I don't remember exactly. And we get a bunch of other instances where we get more interaction with Maleficent. As I said originally, she's kind of introduced as, Zelena goes to her for advice for a curse or something like that to get revenge on Snow White and Prince Charming, of course, as you do. And eventually we get a bunch of where we find out that, oh, yeah, Regina sent a bunch of the other villains like Ursula and Cruella de Vil into the Cursed Realm, of course, into the Storybrooke realm, but they're not in Storybrooke, they're outside of Storybrooke somewhere else, and they can't enter without Regina's permission because she's the one that cast the spell in the first place. And we find out that Aurora, or that Maleficent at some point, decides that, okay, well, we're all going to go back to Storybrooke and we're going to find the author, and he's going to help us rewrite our stories so we can have happy endings in our stories. I mean, that's not exactly a bad idea. I mean, I don't blame them for it, wanting their own happy endings when we find out what happened with Maleficent. So, before the first curse, when Snow and David find out that they are pregnant, they are aware that their child is going to be a savior. So they're like, okay, well, we want to make sure that our child, I don't remember if they know that it's going to be a girl at this point in time. I think they do. We know that our daughter needs to be good so that way she can protect us. So what they basically do is they end up coming across the author. They don't know it's the author. I may end up doing a whole video itself on the author, but that'll be ways down the line once I've rewatched Once Upon a Time, so a lot more of it's fresh in my mind when it comes to the author. But he's the one that's supposed to chronicle the stories and not interfere with them, and in this case, he does tend to start interfering quite a bit. And he tells them of, well, there's this spell that you can use to transfer all of the likelihood of your child being bad onto someone else. And earlier in the story, they had interacted with Maleficent, and she had said that she had an egg. So they were going there, there's, oh, well, Maleficent turns into a dragon, so the baby's going to be a dragon. So they decide that, oh, well, how about we, transfer all of the chance of, our baby being bad into this egg, into the egg, thinking that it's going to be a dragon anyway, so it's not really, because it's an egg. So, it's a dragon egg. You think it's going to be a dragon. By the way, this is Maleficent's dragon form in Once Upon a Time, and I think it looks awesome. Still the same concept, the black scales. And I forgot to introduce earlier, we've got all of my, I gathered up a bunch of my different dragons. So we got like Toothless and the Light Fury, and we have Stormfly, and I got Jengmo-o. Whatever, the small one of the pseudo-legendaries from Alola. I can never remember which one is which. And then we've got a bunch of different Beanie Baby ones like Cinder, and I don't remember what the other ones are called. So I got them, and I put the Maleficent book in the background because, a lot of the Once Upon a Time stuff centers around Maleficent, and then, of course, I will be attempting to talk about the Maleficent movies, hopefully, in this video, along with the Descendants stuff. So we've got them. Yeah, I didn't do that. I have a Maleficent shirt, but I'm saving that for when I do where I do my favorite Disney villains or something like that, or most powerful or worst Disney villains, as in the ones that were willing to go to the furthest extent to hurt someone. So we'll see what happens with that. Again, that'll be a ways down the line. Maleficent will definitely be in that at the top, near the top of that list, because I love Maleficent. But back to Once Upon a Time. So Snow and David decide that, okay, well, we're going to transfer all the likelihood of Emma being bad, well, baby being bad, into this dragon egg, because it's a dragon and it's probably going to be bad anyway, and it's going to be raised by Maleficent. And they try that. They get the dragon egg from Maleficent, and she had actually come to them beforehand, kind of to plead with them to protect the egg. It's like you have a baby of your own. It's like children are innocent in this matter, and it's one of the times where you see Emma and Snow make a bad, or Snow and David make a bad decision. Not the only time that they make bad decisions, but one of the times where they make a bad decision, and unfortunately, this one has a lot of ramifications down the line. And of course, I don't blame Maleficent for getting angry when she finds out that they took her baby. They took her egg. Maleficent does not know who the father is. She met the father in dragon form, and I'm assuming it was some form of a mating thing or whatever. We do find out who the father is at the end of the story, but that's a ways down the line. But we get a lot of, Emma and, well, they transfer all the likelihood of Emma being bad onto the dragon egg, and then, portal opens up and the egg falls through the portal as it starts to hatch, and they see inside that it's an actual baby, not a dragon. And that's the last that Maleficent sees of the baby. And later on, one of the things that, of course, Maleficent wants is she wants to find her daughter. And she kind of gets Emma to help with that, because Emma is, of course, very good at finding people, because she was kind of a detective, bounty hunter type thing. So we get a lot of, Maleficent has Emma help her try to find her baby. And she had, at some point, I think, had Rumpelstiltskin kind of show her what happened to her baby. And, her baby was found and adopted in the, the cursed realm, our realm. Baby was found and adopted into a family that did love it, that did love her very much, and they named her Lilith Page, so Lily. And we find out through Emma that Emma had interacted with Paige and with Lily at some point. And that's more along the lines of, we get these great sequences of Emma kind of growing up. And at one point we get a lot of flashbacks of Emma growing up, the bad home she was in, the bad places where she had to live for a long time, and it did not go well. But what happens is Emma does end up interacting with Paige at some point, and we find out that Paige is very hard for Paige to make good decisions. And she says at some point later on, it's like her and Emma kind of bond. The whole, well, you're adopted, and, Paige was adopted, or Lily was adopted, but she was adopted into a good, well-to-do family, and her and Emma, they kind of bond, and then that kind of gets ripped away, and a lot of things happen, and then at some point Emma has to confront her at some point when she's trying to help Maleficent find her, and, Lily ran away from home at various points in time. And, she can't make good decisions. She keeps I can't make good decisions. And it's, it's a result of the spell that Snow and David had used to transfer all of Emma's ability to make good or bad decisions into into the eggs. That way Lilith kind of can't make anything but a bad decision, is how it feels to her. And that, of course, leads to a lot of different things. And Lilith actually has the ability to turn into a dragon as well. Mother like daughter. And her father can turn into a dragon as well. She knows that much about him at this point in time. But, Lily and Emma end up having to go through a bunch of different turmoil and everything. And we decide that, we don't decide, but Emma at some point ends up finding, getting Lily and bringing her back to Storybrooke and bringing her back to Maleficent. And Maleficent is extremely happy to have her daughter back, but she's not, Lily is having a hard time accepting this, and then accepting the whole magic concept, which, again, I don't blame the girl for being like, wait, what do you mean that magic is real? Magic isn't real. I don't know what you're talking about. No, magic's real, and you can turn into a dragon. So can your mother, and cast curses, and a lot of fun stuff. And a lot of things happen. We get a lot more of Emma, reminiscing, meeting with Lily and interacting with her in childhood, where they were growing up. Since Emma moved around a lot and ran away a lot, eventually, of course, ended up on her own. We know this. And, Matt Balefire at some point had Henry and gave him up for adoption because she was going to be in jail, blah, 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 blah. Lots of different reasons. that's Emma's backstory. That'll go into something at some other point in time, but not right now. This is about Lily and Maleficent. Maleficent keeps trying to bond with her, and then we get the whole where they get the during the alternate reality bit that they refer to it as, where the author used his power to write all of the storybook character, all of the fairy tale characters into alternate world where all the villains kind of win, and all of the heroes are now kind of either villains or dead, or, well, not dead, but, you know, kind of, I guess, punished by some point. And in the alternate reality, Emma is locked up in a tower because he can't, like, write certain people out of existence, I guess, because that, I guess, breaks the rules of what he can do. But he has, like, Emma's trapped inside of this tower prison thing, and Lily is actually her guard, and she you know, ends up having to, like, chase after Emma at some point when Henry shows up to save her. So we get a lot of that, and the author gets his comeuppance. At some point, I do know that, like, Maleficent and the other villains, well, I know that Cruella dies, but I'll be getting to that when I get to the 101 Dalmatians videos, which will be next, since 101 Dalmatians is the next movie. Which I love 101 Dalmatians. I think they're adorable. But we have this whole bit where, like, Ursula also kind of gets something that she's been wanting for a long time, and kind of gets the ability, you know, it's the whole concept of, you know, villains are villains when you make them villains. And villains, unfortunately, are the ones that kind of made some of the bad choices, but the heroes, and that's what the alternate reality shows us, the heroes could have very easily made those same bad choices. You know, because in the alternate reality, you know, I think Maleficent is kind of, I don't remember exactly what Maleficent does in the alternate reality realm. I don't exactly remember. But she ends up there as well. I think she's, like, happy or something. I don't know exactly what it is that happens, and I don't remember exactly what happens to Philip and Aurora in that realm. For all I know, they're both cursed in eternal sleep, and of course, since you're asleep and your soul and your, you know, true love is asleep, you can't exactly kiss to wake each other up. But, like, they do a great, or, you know, if given the choice, you know, sometimes villains will end up making the right choice. We see that a lot with Once Upon a Time, with Regina for the most part, but we see that a little bit with Maleficent. She was willing to try to make a deal with Snow and David in order to protect her baby, which I think is a good thing. And after everything is broken for the alternate realm curse, Emma and everybody else, of course, were taken back to Storybrooke, and that includes Maleficent and Paige, or Lily. I keep calling her Lily because there's, like, another, I keep calling her Paige because there's, like, something else that's named Paige, but Lily. And what happens is, at some point, after all that's kind of happened and Lily has, like, accepted who her mother is and everything, she decides that she kind of wants to try to find out who her father is. And the only clue that she has to who her father is a crescent stone moon necklace that is a piece of the eggshell that she hatched from. And that's her only clue to who her father is, because Maleficent doesn't know. And we do get an end on this. We don't really get anything for for Lily or Maleficent in later on stuff, for the most part, because they're not, like, in the bit where Henry grows up. They're not really around too much, I think, during, like, the Black Fairy incident. Again, I will be rewatching everything, so I might amend that statement later on, but at the moment, as far as I can remember, and if I'm wrong, you know, then, I don't know, comment. But Emma and Paige, or Emma and Lily talk, but we get talk a little bit, and I'm assuming that Emma tries to continue with that friendship, because at some point Lily had said at some point Lily had said to Emma that, you know, all the choices that I seem to make are wrong, but when I'm around you, things seem brighter. So it's kind of the whole, you know, the yin to the yang. which I think is a very nice way of having that relationship. And, you know, we don't really get to see what happens too much with Emma and Hook and Storybrooke and everything when Henry goes off after he graduates from high school, and he goes off and has his own adventure and deals with his own curse. We don't really see what happens with that because that's not the center of the story. Henry's part is part of that story. So, you know, it could have been that, you know, Lily and Emma continue to be good friends. Just, you know, for all we know, like Lily is, you know, like kind of an aunt figure to Emma and Hook's daughter Hope. Since she would kind of be the closest thing, I guess, to what Emma has for a sister, to a degree. I mean, she has her younger brother. She has her younger brother, Neil, who is, never mind, I'm not going into that right now. So we have that. But we get like the beat on the end of the Maleficent and Lily story is that when after the last curse, the sixth curse, whatever is broken, that's on Henry, and the other is out in Hyperion Heights, which is on like the other side of the coast, but like happening concurrently with things, and I don't remember exactly. But Zelena and Regina are on the way to Regina's coronation. And Zelena informs Regina that Lily and Maleficent found Lily's father. He's Zorro. Not the Zorro from One Piece. That would be cool though, but no, that's not the right Zorro. Zorro is in like the Mask of Zorro, the Legend of Zorro, that type of thing. Because, you know, Zorro was kind of a Disney property, I guess, at some point. And or like they were the originator of it or something like that for a lot of the movies and such. As in like for the original movies way back when. But Zorro is Lily's father. And he can turn into a dragon. So I'm just like, okay, I would have liked getting to see some of that side story, I guess. But, you know, that's where we get that. I know that there's, you know, more stuff that happens with Maleficent and everything in Once Upon a Time, and at some point then I might go back and like revisit certain things. But that's about what I have for that. So next we'll be moving on to Descendants. So that would be Descendants 1, 2, and 3. There are several different ties to the Sleeping Beauty story in that, of course, the obvious glaring example is Mal, who's the daughter of Maleficent, who in this case is played by Kristen Chenoweth, who just kind of like chews up the scenery in whatever scene she's in. I just find that so funny. You know, as we know, of course, from earlier videos where I talked a little bit about this, in Descendants, it's supposed to be that, you know, all the heroes live in Oridon, and all of the villains and their sidekicks and the villain kids and everything live on this Isle of the Lost. And that is where Mal and the other three who are her friends grow up. Maleficent is there along with the Evil Queen and Cruella de Vil and Jafar and such, and like all of their kids are the core four, you know, Mal, Evie, Jay, and Carlos. And those four are the ones that are chosen to go to Oridon to go and try to prove that, you know, oh, you know, we'll give the kids of the villains a second chance. So they get sent to Oridon. And kind of their parents are like, okay, well, you're going to go to Oridon, and your job is to try to find Fairy Godmother's magic wand so that way you can bring down this stupid barrier that's preventing us from using magic around this island. Because on the island, magic doesn't work. And they have it's a lot more fend for yourself. Most of the villains don't necessarily take a huge amount of care in raising their children. Some of the villains seem a little bit more, you know, loving towards their kids, but the main four that we interact with and some of the other ones don't really seem all that affectionate toward their children. Some of the other ones do, those ones don't. And Mal and the others are sent to Oridon, and, you know, she decides, well, first they try to steal the magic wand, and that doesn't go well. So then they're like, okay, well, we know that, well, they find out that Prince Ben, who is Belle and Beast's son, again, move to the next letter of the alphabet, or move to a couple of letters down in the alphabet to come up with a name for your kid. But okay, whatever. Whatever. But they try to steal the wand, and then they find out that, okay, well, Fairy Godmother is going to, kind of bless Ben with the wand at the coronation. So we need to find a way to be at the coronation and be up on stage with them so that way we can grab the wand, which I just more put as like a lack of security in regards to Auradon. I have issues with some of the Descendants movies. I like them, but I still have issues with them. Mal decides that, okay, well, to get up on the stage, one of us has to have Ben be in love with us. So they make a love potion. It's basically like a love potion in a cookie form that they can then feed, that she can then feed to Ben, and then he will fall in love with her, and then she'll be his girlfriend, and then she'll get to be on stage with him at the coronation. Because the other VKs are going to be like up in the gallery to show they're there to witness the coronation of their new king, who's 16 years old. That's a lot of power to give a 16-year-old. Admittedly, Belle and Beast are there to give him advice, but I'll go more into that when I get to the Beauty and the Beast video, which is probably going to be 2 videos also, at least. But we have Mal spells Ben, and we actually see some bits where she actually starts figuring out that, okay, maybe I like Ben a little bit more than just with this spell. And kind of catalyst of being around Ben and such kind of helps her and the others. The others all find something with it. Like, Evie starts designing clothes, Jay gets into sports, and Carlos finds this dog that he very much becomes attached to rather quickly. And they they all start to realize, okay, well, maybe we don't want to be what our parents want. But Mal was basically raised the whole time by Maleficent, going, okay, well, we're going to be evil together. We'll both rule Auradon together. You want to be evil like me. And we do this great musical number, which just like allows Kristen Chenoweth to show off her chops. Because she's a Broadway performer, of course, but it allows her to show off her chops. And she does a great job with it. She just has so much fun with that role, I think, with like just chewing up the scenery all around her. But Mal decides that she's going to break the spell that's on Ben. And to do that, she makes like this, little cupcake thing, brownie thing, or whatever that's going to reverse the curse. Mal has this spell book that she got from Maleficent that allows her to do small spells, and some other things. She uses to like change a bunch of the girls' hair to make it look cooler, or more stylish or whatever. But before that, we have a little bit of where it interacts with more of the Sleeping Beauty story, because Ben's original girlfriend is Audrey, who is the daughter of Sleeping Beauty, so Aurora and Prince Philip. And her grandmother, Queen Leah, interacts with Mal at some point when they're having this big, Parents' Day thing. We don't ever see Audrey's actual parents, but we do see the grandmother. This is Audrey, very pretty. This is her grandmother, classic beauty. And at one point we get it where Audrey, where Queen Leah, whatever. It's not Leia. But where they interact, and she's just like, she recognizes Mal. She looks familiar, but she can't figure out why. And like Mal's being very nice and polite and everything, and she doesn't know who she is off the top of her head and everything, but she's being very polite. And then Audrey comes over and goes, "You may not want to get too close to this Grammy unless you want to take another 100-year nap." And then Leah kind of snaps at Mal, and snaps and makes a big public public incident to a degree that results in her going, "Don't any of you remember the curses and the poisoned apples and the I because of your mother I didn't get to my daughter had to be raised by fairies and I didn't get to watch her first steps or anything like that." And it's like, it is kind of a valid grievance to have. I mean, it's not necessarily something that you should hold against the child of the person that did it, because that's, blaming the child for the sins of the parent. But she has a legitimate grievance. She missed watching her daughter grow up. And I can't blame her for being angry about that, but that doesn't mean that she should take it out on Mal. That's like, and that does kind of come around later on in Descendants 3. But we get a lot of, Mal and Evie and the others end up becoming good. And Mal actually ends up, because at the coronation, before the coronation, she gave Ben the little treat sweet thing that's gonna dispel the sleeping or the love potion. And he's like, well, we have to give it a few minutes to make sure that it gets rid of the love potion. And she's like, oh, wait a second, you knew? And he's like, well, yeah. Which I just find funny, because Ben decides that he did really like her, even without the love potion. And Ben does seem to be pretty smart. I'll give him that. But we get Mal in these great outfits. I love a lot of the different costume designs that they came up with for Descendants. I think they did a great job on those costume designs. Because Mal always wears different types, purple and everything all over the place, and I think that's great. But she ends up having to face down her mother, because at the coronation, they were supposed to grab the wand and then use it to dispel the barrier around the Isle of Lost. Via certain kind of machinations from Mal onto Jane. Jane, who's the fairy godmother's daughter, takes the wand and uses it, and it knocks out the barrier, but you'd think that would be something that you'd have to be more concentrated on in order to knock out the barrier specifically. But Maleficent flies in, and she's like, okay, and she like freezes everyone. We get this funny bits of just like Kristen Chenoweth getting to have fun, and she like messes with Ben's crown, and goes, he's so cute. Looks at Beast, and she like takes Beast's glasses, and like Beast is like human at this point, and she's like, and another time, and another time. Like funny stuff. Just like Maleficent chewing up the scenes, and just Kristen Chenoweth just having so much fun. It's like, oh, I gotta be bad? Yes. Ooh, I can be bad. I gotta sing. So much fun with that, which I just think is so funny. But Maleficent and Mal end up having this kind of stare down a few times throughout the course of the movie. We get at the beginning of the movie where Mal's the one that kind of blinks, the whole staring contest for magic power, and Mal's the one that blinks. And then we get it where Maleficent at the coronation turns into her dragon form, which we get here. And then Mal, using her power with the other three, her friends, use her power of what they've learned about love in order to turn her mother, defeat her mother, and it turns her mother into this kind of little gecko thing. And Mal and Ben, then the coronation can finish and everybody's happy, and Mal and the others are heroes. And Mal and Ben are, of course, very happy together. And then we get into Descendants 2 territory, where we have Mal having to struggle with, okay, I have to be good. I have to be this perfect princess type thing. But I don't want to be, but I have to be because I like Ben. I love Ben, but I can't say it because I don't know if that's exactly what I'm feeling. And we get a whole of her having to deal with that emotion. And she gets a lot of pressure put on her to be this perfect, because she's Ben's girlfriend and she's a VK and she wasn't raised for this. And we get a lot of that. Audrey isn't really in the second one at all. And she gets mentioned a few times, like she's at a spa with her fairy godmothers. She's at a spa with her fairy godmothers, and then she gets a flat tire, and Chad has to go and help her. Audrey is a lot more prominent in Descendants 3. But Mal kind of succumbs to the pressure of everything, and she ends up going back to the Isle because she thinks, okay, I'll actually get to be happy on the Isle. Or at the very least, I can be me. And Ben and the others end up going to the Isle to try to save her, get her to come back. And that has issues, and we find out that Mal has had kind of a rivalry with Ursula's daughter, Uma. Okay, Ursula, Uma, I'm like, okay, it's not as bad as some of the other ones. You know, we have Harry Hook. Oh, God. It's like, villains, come up with better naming schemes for your kids. Heroes, do the same thing. At the very least, when it comes to... at the very least, like, the one that actually has, like, some form of, you know, slight creativity when it comes to naming their kid was Fairy Godmother, because Fairy Godmother is just what she's called, but she names her daughter Jane. I'm like, okay, at least you didn't give her like a name that starts with like an F or a G. Okay, you get points for that, lady. But we see Emma interact with Dizzy Tremaine, and Emma ends up getting a makeup, or Emma. This is not Once Upon a Time. Emma is not in Descendants. Mal interacts with Dizzy Tremaine, and she ends up getting a makeover. And so she goes from kind of this, you know, prim, perfect, proper, you know, she had a spell to dye her hair blonde and everything. She goes from that into this. Feels much more like herself, with, you know, hair back to her regular color, and, you know, clothes in a much more her style. Because she was trying to do the, you know, it's like, I can be the perfect princess. I can be what Ben needs me to be for this. And, you know, but we get this other moment where, you know, her, you know, all the others show up to try to save her and get her to come back. And Ben, unfortunately, ends up getting captured. We'll go into a little bit more about like what happens with Ben when I get to Beauty and the Beast. But Ben gets captured by Uma, and they use him as bait to try to get the others to bring them Fairy Godmother's wand. Via things, they get a fake version of the wand and bring it back, and they're gonna go and fight them. So we get Emma and Uma having to fight, and, you know, all these other ones having to fight against each other in order to try to save Ben. And they escape, and they get back to Auradon. Earlier in the movie, Mal decides that she doesn't want to be with Ben anymore, and she gives him back like his, you know, he has like a royal ring or whatever that he had given to Audrey, and then he gave it to Mal, and Mal give it back to him kind of at the midway or at the beginning of the movie, because she's breaking up with him, and she's like, I can't do this anymore, take the ring back. And the others are kind of, you know, trying to get Mal to, okay, at least come to this huge ball cotillion type thing that's supposed to go on, and Mal is going to become a full-fledged lady of the court. Don't know if that implies that like Evie is going to become that as well, but Mal is the main one that's going to become the lady of the court. And she ends up, you know, they go to the cotillion, and at cotillion, we find out that Uma escaped the barrier as well when they were leaving, and that she has Mal's spell book, and she used the spell book to make a love potion and use that on Ben. And Ben then, you know, thinks he's in love with Uma, and Mal is able to break that spell by, you know, confessing to Ben that, yes, I do love you. I have loved you. I just didn't think that you loved me for me. Or loved me for the way that I am, not the way that you think that I need to be. Which, you know, is a good lesson in regard to that. I mean, like, the Descendants movies is, you know, some parts of it are just like, why? And other parts are just like, okay, yeah, sure. I'll go with that. And we get this bit where, you know, Uma snaps because, of course, her spell was just broken, and she turns into giant version like what her mother could do in Little Mermaid, where she turns into this giant octopus thing, and then Mal learns that she can turn into a dragon. Yeah, Mal can turn into a dragon. Mal turns into a dragon, and they end up fighting, and then, you know, Uma scurries off with her, I would say, tentacles, with tail between her tentacles, but Uma doesn't have a tail, and tentacles between her tentacles doesn't really work. So she just swims off. And Mal turns back into her human form, and her and Ben are back together. Then, whole big musical number of, everybody's happy. Ben and Mal are happy together. Everybody's happy. Then we get into Descendants 3. Mal seems to be taking much better mental care of herself. All the others seem to be very happy. They're going to be doing more VK villain kids coming over from the Isle of the Lost to have the chance to be good. And one of them is, I think it's Celia, who is Dr. Facilier's daughter, which, okay, points to Facilier. He didn't stick with the whole, I'm going to start with an F, or whatever it is. It's like Facilier, Celia. Okay, that's not bad. He's one of the ones that at least seems to have some form of affection for his daughter when they interact. The other villains don't seem to have too much affection for the daughter. For their kids. But before they go to Oradon, or before they go to the Isle of the Lost to get the kids that are going to be coming, we have this big, fun bit where, Ben proposes to Mal. And she says yes. And we have Audrey in the background. And she's extremely angry about this, and her grandmother's there, and she has Chad next to her, because her and Chad kind of are a couple at this point in time. And her grandmother's just like, your mother could hold on to a man in her sleep. All these years of planning for you to be queen, gone in an instant. I'm just like, lady, maybe you shouldn't put so much pressure on your granddaughter. And Audrey kind of snaps. After seeing Mal and Ben get together, and she ends up snapping. And she goes to the museum, and she's just going there to try to steal like the queen's crown that for some reason is on display. But she ends up stealing Maleficent's scepter as well. Which, why they didn't just take Maleficent's scepter away from her in the first place, way back when they first banished her to the Isle, I do not know. But they don't take it from her until the end of the first movie. Because she has it, for whatever, on the Isle. But, she uses that scepter, and she gets this makeover. I mean, I like it. And she starts spreading a curse in Oradon. She turns Mal into an old lady. When the others are just hanging out at Evie's house, she turns Mal into like the old hag from, kind of the old hag concept from Snow White. And then she starts putting everyone to sleep, and she curses Ben to kind of become a beast like his father. And then we get, she also then starts turning everyone to stone. And Mal and the others have to go to the Isle of the Lost to get Hades' Ember. We learn that Hades is Mal's father. Which, as I mentioned in the previous video in the House of Mouse sequence, Hades and Maleficent kind of go on a date together and seem to have a thing for each other. Which I look at that and I'm like, okay, was like one of the writers on Descendants like looked at something and like, well, why don't we just have Hades be her dad? Or was that just a coincidence in that case? I don't know. They have Hades as her father, and he wasn't around at all. Admittedly, he makes a comment of like, well, you try living with your mother. You try being married to your mother. That's not going to go well for anybody. And she's like, yeah, but at least mom was there. And Mal kind of has to deal with daddy issues in this case, and she has to deal with the fact that she lied to her friends about things, and it's all the different Descendants movies are about all the characters growing, and her and Uma have to fix their relationships. That way Uma and and her gang of rebels can help, and rebels, pirates, whatever, can help. And Mal, at the end of the movie, she decides, okay, well, we're going to drop the barrier around the Isle of the Lost and just have it that everyone can now be together. And they bring that barrier down, and whole nice big dance sequence of everyone, the original 4 villain kids leading the others from the island on, from the Isle, onto Oridon. But before that, we dealt with, Mal used her power, of course, to finally was able to defeat Audrey. After, watching all of her friends get turned to stone and losing her allies, Mal and Uma working together are finally able to defeat Audrey. But unfortunately, Audrey is kind of, on death's door, so, they need to bring Hades in from the Isle of the Lost in order to, make it so she doesn't die. And that results in, Emma or Mal having to, kind of reconcile a bit more with her father. And he, he's a god. He's bound by his oaths. He does, wake Audrey up, and that helped, and Audrey kind of snaps out of whatever it was that was making her obsessive and everything. And Audrey apologizes to Mal, and her grandmother apologizes both to Audrey and to Mal, for, putting so much pressure on Audrey, but also for, treating Mal the way that she did. And Mal and Hades kind of end up fixing a bit of their relationship, but he gets sent back to the Isle. And at the end of the movie, when, once all the villains and their kids and everything are kind of, well, not all the villains, but a bunch of the villain sidekick kids and everything get, brought back over to Oridon, so that way everyone can be together. Because whether you're from the Isle or you're from Oridon, you can be good or you can be bad, and you can be good and come from the bad place, or you can be bad and come from the good place. It's all about the choices that you make. And that's kind of the concept of what the Descendants movies are trying to teach us. Of, it's all about the decisions you make can determine whether or not you're the hero or you're the villain. And so, and we get a bit where, like, Hades comes back and him and Mal hug, and Ben is, like, very, very, like, okay, so not only is my, fiance there, it's kind of their engagement party that has the catalyst for this. Not only is my fiance the daughter of Maleficent, and she can turn into a dragon, she could probably roast me if she decided I did something worth being roasted over. Her father is also the king of the god of the dead. And we get this bit where they have Mal hugging Hades, and Hades is just like looking at Ben, like, Ben. Yes, sir, I will not harm your daughter in any way. So you have fun bits with that. That's about where the Descendants stuff ends. I know I'm missing a ton of stuff for, like, the Descendants Wicked World, but, and that's the animated series, but I haven't really watched anything of the animated series. I know throughout the animated series they show Emma, or Mal, and the others grow more, and her and Ben's relationship grow more, and other, side characters that are kids of other heroes or villains that they interact with that I just don't exactly know who they are because I haven't seen them. But, we watch Mal and the others grow, and that's the point of the series. I wish that they would kind of do a Descendants 4, at least have, like, a short or something that has it where Mal and Ben get married and she is crowned Queen of Oridon. But given circumstances that I'll get to when I talk about Carlos in the 101 Dalmatians video, we'll get to that. But I kind of wish that they could have done kind of just, one final thing, not like a whole Descendants 4 movie, but like at least like a little half-hour thing or something like that is, her getting married, and, Hades walks her down the aisle, and, her and Ben, everything, and Beast and Belle are there, and, they show all the villain kids there and the regular hero kids, and, Evie's the maid of honor, and like either Jay or Carlos or like Ben's best man or whatever. You know, I think that that would have been a cute thing for them to be able to do, but for reasons that I'll explain when I get to the 101 Dalmatians video, I don't think that that would ever happen. I guess they could do like an animated version of it in like the Wicked world, but for the animated series, but I don't know if they ever would. I know that all the characters that, all the actors that voice the kids, at least, or that play the kids in the main movies, also voice them in the series. So they have fun with that. Let me think. Do I have time to talk about the Maleficent movies? Let me look at my notes and I'll be right back and I'll let you know. Okay, so I'm just going to get the Maleficent stuff out of the way now. Mostly just because it's just me kind of pointing out some of the differences between the original movie and the Maleficent movies. That, and I don't want to have to spend another hour or whatever recording more stuff. Which, can you blame me? This one's a little long as it is. 101 Dalmatians is going to take a while too, but it's live in movies and blah, blah, blah. So, Maleficent, the original one, came out in 2014, has, Angelina Jolie as Maleficent. We find out that she is kind of this fairy that's in charge of guarding the moors, and she ends up becoming friends with this human kid named Stefan, and who is, of course, later will become King Stefan, but they, she kind of fell in love with him, and he later on ended up betraying her, as in he used iron chains to basically cut her wings off because she was using her powers to pretend to protect the moors where her and all the other fairy and magical creatures live. And King Henry, who was the previous king before Stefan, because he's like, okay, he's on his deathbed, and he's like, whoever can, kill this child, whoever kills that woman will, be the one that will be, my successor or whatever. And he, Stefan, knowing what he knows about Maleficent, uses her power, uses what he knows about her to rip her wings off after he knocks her out, and brings her wings back to King Henry, who then, says you will be rewarded greatly, and he gets to marry his daughter and Stefan gets to marry the daughter and become King Stefan. And Maleficent kind of has a broken heart at this point in time because she had thought that Stefan had loved her, because he talked about true love, and he, didn't love her, so. And what happens is we, of course, get the bit where Maleficent ends up finding this bird that's going to be, killed by this farmer and his dog or whatever, and she turns it into a human because Maleficent is extremely powerful, even without her wings. She turns the bird into a human, and says his name is Diaval, which then explains the raven that she has as her pet. Take off on the raven from the pet from the original movie. We get her showing up at the christening, of course. She has much more of the typical Maleficent outfit, which I just love this look on Angelina Jolie. I think she pulled off the role perfectly in both movies. And she, curses the baby with, the three fairies are there, of course, who I don't remember the fairies' exact names. We have the blue, the green, and the pink fairy. And the lady that played the pink fairy is, of course, Umbridge from Harry Potter, which I just find funny. I don't remember the name of the three fairies, but the three fairies are there. And, Stefan and his queen have the daughter, and they go to... Okay, so they go to the christening, and the three fairies give the Aurora gifts. Knotgrass is, I believe, the one who is the pink one. Thistlewit, and then Flittle are the other two. I do not remember which one exactly is the blue or the green one, but they have those. And Maleficent shows up, and she has her whole awesome entrance and everything, and has this whole air of evil about her, and she looks awesome. And And she curses the baby. On the eve of her 16th birthday, or before sun sets on her 16th birthday, that pricks her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel, and she will die or fall into eternal sleep. And like the queen's just like, and she's like, but, and Maleficent's like, but if she is kissed with true love's kiss, she will awaken. One of the fairy gave her the gift. They get the whole gift of beauty and song, and the other gives her the gift of all who meet her will love her. And that's kind of a way of counteracting, I guess, or it's a movie plot version of like, okay, well, everyone's gonna fall in love with her when they see her, so then how are you gonna know what true love is? And Maleficent leaves, and the three fairies take Aurora, and take her to be raised in this, in the cottage. This is one of the bits that I very much like that they did with the remake, because in the original movie, it's just, the fairies go off and they raise the baby in the forest for 16 years. They never explain how the baby had food, because the fairies do not know how to take care of a baby. The fairies do not know how to cook or sew or anything like that. And in this one, we get more of that, because we have the fairies not knowing how to feed a baby, not knowing how to take care of a baby. And Maleficent makes a comment of, if the thing dies because of them, then how am I supposed to get my revenge? So she, sends Diaval with food and everything to feed the baby, so that way it doesn't die. So Aurora doesn't die. And we get these bits of like Maleficent like sneaking in and like looking in at Aurora in the cradle, and then like hissing at the baby, and the baby's just like, "Who the are you?" And we get later on as the baby grows up, Maleficent starts to call her Beastie. And kind of saves the baby's life a few times, and we get this bit where Maleficent interacts with a very young Aurora, and they actually had to use Angelina Jolie's actual daughter to play the baby, or play this little toddler-ish version of Aurora, because all the other kids would like run away from her because she was in the makeup and everything. And Aurora, this one, the daughter had to be, wouldn't do that, because it's like, it's mommy, but she's in weird makeup, but it's mommy. So she, they do that bit, and, interact with that. And, as Aurora grows up, Maleficent, kind of watches over them and everything, watches over her. And of course she makes the fairies kind of, she like tortures the three fairies, which is just funny. And back at the castle, we have King Stefan using his knowledge of the fact that fairies are weak to iron. He has all the blacksmiths building the iron suits of armor for them to use, and like iron thorns and spikes and everything that they can use to like cover the castle in, for later on, for when it comes time for Aurora's 16th birthday. And at some point in this time frame, unfortunately, the queen dies. Stefan doesn't seem very concerned about this. He's more obsessed with finding a way to defeat Maleficent, than spending time with his wife. Again, people, your daughter is not going to be cursed until her 16th birthday. Just keep her with you in the castle, and once she's old enough, because the spell's not going to take effect until like her 16th birthday, until the day of her 16th birthday, or the day before her 16th birthday, or whatever. And if all you do is you just keep her away from all the spinning wheels in the kingdom, and in this case, again, they burn all the spinning wheels. They burn them and they break them and everything. But if for some reason they keep them in like the dungeon of the castle, I'm just like, wouldn't it have just been a better idea to just make sure that everything is like burned to ash, and then burn it again, and then like, ship it off somewhere else or whatever. Don't leave the broken pieces of the spinning wheels and spindles and everything sitting in the basement of your castle. Don't do that. Again, fairy tale logic. At some point, I'm just going to do like a funny video that's just like, how to survive in a fairy tale. But, so he's obsessively making more and more iron. And Maleficent and Diaval, Diaval and Maleficent slowly become more friends than just, servant and master. And The guy who played Diaval had a great comment in like one of the interviews. He's like, well, at some point, at the beginning, it's just, I'm her servant, she's my master. But at some point later on, because of so many years have passed, you know, we act more like an old married couple, which I'm like, yeah, I can see that, particularly in the second movie. But they do a lot of that, and Maleficent kind of keeps an eye on Aurora so she doesn't die. And a little while before her 16th birthday, Maleficent ends up interacting with Aurora and uses her, takes Aurora in and out of the moors so Aurora can interact with all the different fairy folk that are in the moors. And Aurora just calls her godmother because she thinks that Maleficent is her godmother. She does not know that she is the wicked, or that she's, the black fairy, or, well, not the black fairy, but, this horrible evil fairy, or the one that cursed her, because Aurora doesn't know about the curse. She doesn't know that she's a princess or anything like that. And she says, well, I decided that I'm going, and, on the day before her 16th birthday, I was like, okay, well, I decided that I'm going to move to the moors and live with Maleficent there, so I can be happy there. Well, Maleficent offers Aurora the chance to come and do that. And Aurora returns home, or on her way home, she interacts with Prince Philip. So again, we have them meet in the forest, but they're not around each other very long. And he falls in love at first sight because of one of the fairy's gifts. And Diaval sees this, and because he's kind of, Aurora's guardian and tends to follow her and watch over her and such. And she goes back to the fairies, and they explain to her, oh, no, you can't go live in the moors. You can't go live in the moors. You have to go back to the palace because that's where your father is, and you're the princess. And, explain everything to her, no, you're cursed, and we've been raising here in the forest for 16 years. And this makes Aurora extremely sad, and she runs back to the forest, or runs back to the moors where she interacts with Maleficent again. And Maleficent explains that I'm the one that cursed you all those years ago. And this just breaks Aurora's heart because she looked at Maleficent as a godmother, as someone who was supposed to protect her. And it just breaks Aurora's heart. And she, decides, okay, well then screw this. I'm just going to go back to the castle now, and maybe my father will love me. And she gets to the castle, and, she interacts with her father, and he basically goes and locks her in a room. And again, you're not paying very good attention to the kid. A little bit earlier, once Maleficent realized how much she actually cared about Aurora, she tried to revoke the curse, which didn't work because, the curse is cast and you can't revoke it. She tried with all of her might to revoke the curse, but that didn't work. Because she figured out that she loved Aurora, and she doesn't want Aurora to, be in the eternal sleep because Maleficent chose to make it that true love's kiss would be able to wake her up, because Maleficent doesn't think that true love exists. Which, of course, plays into things later, but we'll get to that. And Maleficent, she, after Aurora leaves, she tells Diaval to find Philip, and then she, puts Philip under, like, a slight sleeping, floating spell, and, like, leads him, with a horse, and leads him into the, very carefully around all these spikes of iron and everything that are around the castle, so it's reminiscent of, the thorn barrier thing that Maleficent cast around the castle. In the movie, it's representative of that, but it's, iron, and it's designed to keep Maleficent out or to weaken her. And she she makes her way through this barrier of all the thorns and everything. And Aurora, who is kind of, in her room at the palace, or a room at the palace, at the castle, starts, drawn out of her room and starts wandering through the castle. Just like, just keep her in the room, a guard on the outside door, a guard on the inside door, and a guard on the window. And, and she wanders through the palace, and eventually she finds her way to the dungeon basement area where, like, all these broken pieces of spinning wheels and spindles are sitting around because nobody thought in the last 16 years to clean that mess up. Like, oh, well, she's not going to be here anyway, so keep all that stuff in the basement. Oh, God. And like, via the curse and everything, cobbles together a spinning wheel and spindle, and she pricks her finger on that, and she, falls asleep. And, fairies show up, and they, have her up in the room, and Stefan's there, and, Stefan, he's just like, does she look okay? I was like, well, she's asleep. We just need to find the right person to kiss her. Like, you three raised her for 16 years. Can you claim that you love her? I mean, you probably love her to a degree. It says true love's kiss. It doesn't mean that he's true love by her soulmate. Which, of course, is where this comes into play, because, in a lot of fairy tales, it's, true love's first kiss is what will wake them up, or true love's kiss, or whatever it is, some variation of that. True love does not necessarily only equate to two people who are in love. True love can be a parent to a child, can be siblings. Yes, it can be, two people who are in love, of course. But, anything that is, true love, where you would, willingly sacrifice whatever you have for this other person. And we have an example of this in Frozen when it comes to Elsa and Anna. We have an example of this, coming up in this. And Once Upon a Time, we have various versions of the example of true love's kiss. We have various, Snow White and David have true love's kiss that, wakes Snow White up, and Philip and Aurora do the same thing, and like other things happen, and the curse is initially broken by Emma kissing Henry, and that's true love's kiss. And then Regina, and I'll go into this at some point when I just talk about like true love and Disney and what's shown with that, because there's a lot of explanation of that down the line in Disney for true love, or throughout Disney for what's considered true love. Maleficent, made her way into the castle, and she has Philip, and she drops Philip in front of the room where Aurora is, and the fairies, drag him inside. I was like, kiss her, kiss her, kiss her. Because I was like, he recognizes her, and he's like, well, we met in the forest and everything. And, so he kisses her, and it doesn't wake her up, of course. And they like shove him out of the room. It's like, we have to go find another prince. And the fairies leave, so then Maleficent sneaks into the room, and she's looking down at Aurora, and she's just like, I will use all of my power or whatever to make sure that you are safe, so that no harm comes to you or whatever for the time that she's asleep. Well, they, wait for whatever, and then she kisses Aurora, because it's, it's the true love. It's, it's the mother kissing the child concept, or in this case, the godmother kissing the child. And that wakes up Aurora. Aurora wakes up, and that kind of helps her and Maleficent reconcile. And then they're just like, okay, well, we're going to get out of here, and you're going to come back to the moors with me, because that's where you wanted to live in the first place. And then we get the whole huge battle between Maleficent and Diaval and Philip and his cronies, all of his soldiers and knights and everything. And they're fighting her inside of the building, inside of the castle. And Aurora goes off, and she finds Maleficent's wings that are still alive somehow, trapped in this, iron case, and the wings can't get out. So she smashes the case open, and it lets the wings escape and, find Maleficent, and they like reseal onto her back, which was probably very painful, but considering that it's been like 16 years, well, probably 16 and a half to 17 years since Maleficent's had her wings where they should be, they heal back onto her. And then that allows her to have her full power back, and she turns Diaval into a dragon, and that, that's what the whole, Maleficent can turn into a dragon. She can turn Diaval into different, turns him into a dog at one point, and a horse at some point, but, turns him into a dragon for this battle. And they fight, and they defeat Philip and his warriors and everything. And then at one point when Maleficent is about to kill Philip, kill Stefan, she's like, no, it's over. And she, refuses to hurt him, but he, refuses the defeat, refuses to admit defeat, and jumps on her, and they fall over the tower, and Maleficent manages to, makes herself airborne, but Philip dies. And then we get peace finally returning between the Moors and the kingdom, and Maleficent crowns Aurora queen of the Moors and the kingdom. And Philip is there, and they're happy and everything. And that's kind of where the original Maleficent movie ends. Aurora's queen of the Moors, and Maleficent, is flying through the air with Diaval by her side. Then we get into the sequel, which was in 2019, so Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, which is supposed to take place 5 years later. It takes place 5 years later, so Aurora is now about 21. Philip proposes to her at the beginning of the movie. She's the queen of the Moors, and Maleficent is its protector. And, as I said, Philip proposes with the help of the other fairies after a bunch of the fairies have started to go missing. And Aurora says yes, and then he's like, okay, well, now you gotta come meet my parents. And his parents are King John. By certain things, you think it would have been like King Hubert would have been his father's name, but they just went with King John, and then his mother's name is Ingrid, who is played wonderfully by Michelle Pfeiffer. The only cast member from the original, because the same guy who plays Diaval comes back. We have Elle Fanning as Aurora, and we of course have Angelina Jolie as Maleficent. They recast the prince because the guy that had originally played the prince was doing like a series for something else, so he couldn't come in and play the prince. So they recast the prince. Not a huge part of the original movie, so it's not a problem. They recast the prince and for Philip and everything. But he's like, okay, well, now you got to come and meet my parents and everything. And Maleficent wants to, Aurora wants Maleficent and Diaval to come because Maleficent is her godmother, and Diaval is, I wouldn't say like father, more like uncle, I guess. So they go, and Maleficent, doesn't really know how to interact with humans that much because she's not used to smiling that much. And Ingrid and Maleficent, unfortunately, end up they bash heads at the dinner, mostly because Ingrid is Philip's mother is trying to antagonize Maleficent, of course, and makes it look like Maleficent curses the king by pricking him with the needle of the spindle of the spinning wheel that had been used on Aurora in the original movie. Pokes him with that, and that makes him fall into a sleep, and she claims Maleficent's the one that did it. And Maleficent tries to flee, but she gets shot down by like an iron bullet by Ingrid's Gerda is like Maleficent's little sidekick, or not Maleficent's little sidekick, the Queen, Philip's mother's little sidekick. And Maleficent gets shot down, and we find out that Ingrid wants to use a certain type of flower that grew in the moors, use that flower to turn all the fairies into, take all the magic out of them. So that way then they can, get into the moors and get all of the resources that are there, because so many different reasons. We get a whole bit of the Queen's backstory of, oh, well, my father had been a king and he had, hadn't done what he should have, so now I married this weak king, and now I'm going to, use my power and use this plan to gather all, defeat everything that lived in the moors and take out Maleficent and take care of all of this. Maleficent, when she was shot by the bullet, fell into an ocean where she ends up getting rescued by a bunch of other fairies like her, a bunch of these other avian type fairies. A lot of them, there's like a forest kind, there's jungle and forest kind, there's like winter kind, there's, I don't remember if there was a desert kind or not, like mountain kind, like all these other ones. And we get her interacting with these different other fairies like her, and these are the first fairies she's ever met because she didn't know that there were others. And she, interacts with them, and she learns more about the history of their people, that they were, descended from like this phoenix, and that Maleficent is the one that the last descendant from the phoenix, an ancient and powerful dark fae ancestor, which makes Maleficent's magic even more powerful than the others. And several of the fairies want to go and fight the humans, and they do. They via interactions, Aurora the Ingrid kind of tries to be molding Aurora into what she thinks should be a proper princess. So very tight clothes, very restrictive on everything. And they invite all of the Moorfolk to the wedding, and they're going to attack all of them in the castle. And Aurora discovers this plot, and her and Philip try to break it or try to stop it. And Philip at one point has like one of the fairies at like knife point because all the fairies come to attack, and he has like one of the fairies at like the sword to its neck, and he won't kill him. And like Maleficent actually sees this. She sees Philip with his sword at this other guy's, at the other fairy, at one of the fairies' necks, kind of the lead bad, well, not bad fairy, but misguided fairy, with the sword at his neck. And she's like, okay, is he going to do it? Because Maleficent doesn't really approve of Philip, but he kind of makes Aurora happy, so she's like, yeah, I'll deal with it. But Philip doesn't kill the fairy. He won't have fairy blood on his hands, and he just wants to stop his mother because she's going to do this all-out war. And that doesn't, and Maleficent apparently appreciates that. And at some point we have it where Maleficent has to face down Ingrid, and she takes an attack that was going to hit Aurora, which kills her. And we get Maleficent. Maleficent ends up dying, of course. She, falls to pieces, but she is reborn. Aurora's tears on the ashes. I don't know if it's Aurora's tears that caused her to be reborn, or if it's a Maleficent willing, the whole true love thing of like she sacrificed herself in order to protect Aurora, that reborn as a phoenix, and she has even more power, and she stops Ingrid, and Ingrid gets turned into a goat, which is funny. Philip was able to break the spell on his father by kissing him because Ingrid didn't truly love the king, so her kiss wouldn't have worked. But Ingrid or Philip's kiss worked to wake up his father. Unfortunately, several of the fae, or unfortunately of the fairies from the moors, are unfortunately killed, turned into trees and flowers and everything. Two of the fairies survived. One of the fairies, I think it was the blue one. Yeah, it was the blue one, kind of sacrificed herself in order to save the others. But the other two, the pink and the green one, don't. They don't die. The blue one does. The blue one gets turned into a flower. 100% die is a bit debatable, but Aurora, they stop the battle. They stop this horrible battle going on between the Ulstead, which is Philip's kingdom, and the fairies and the people of the moors, and everything is, they stop everything, and it's like, okay, stop. This is not worth it. We do not need to do this. We can all be peaceful together. And they all forge peace together, which, a little bit of like, okay, it's going to take a little bit more than that to finish this. But Maleficent turns back into her fairy form, and she, uses her magic to kind of construct this beautiful outdoor cathedral type thing for where Aurora and Philip can get married. And she, uses her magic to make give Aurora this gorgeous wedding dress, which I love. And the pink and the green fairy kind of go back and forth with pink green on the dress. We get the dress flashing back and forth between very light pink and very light green. On that note, green. I love the light. I think they're cute. If you didn't notice, the light changes I change the light at different videos, depending on the subject. The blue fairy, the last little blue fairy, the one that had sacrificed herself, uses her power to, then makes the dress blue, and that's kind of what it stays as, or whatever. And, Philip and Aurora get married because Maleficent is the one that walked her down the aisle, and Aurora declares that Maleficent is her only mother. So that kind of finally allows Maleficent to accept Philip and gives her their blessing. And, you know, Maleficent breaks the spindle that had been, or the spindle and the spinning wheel that had been used, so it can no longer be used, and the queen gets turned into a goat as punishment. And Aurora and Philip are wed, and then we get Maleficent leaving to take the other dark fairies all the way back to, or the other dark fae, back to the moors, which she tells Aurora and Philip that she'll be back for their christening. When there is a christening, so that implies that I don't know if they're going to do like a Maleficent 3. I don't think so. I could be wrong. I don't know. But she heads off, and we, all the dark fae have moved back into the moors where they should be. So they get to be at peace with Philip's kingdom, with Ulstead. So that implies, okay, so they're pleased with Ulstead. They have the moors, and then the kingdom where Aurora's father, where Aurora was the princess of, she stated that she gave like that castle and everything back to the people because her father had not been a good king to them, and she gave all those resources back to the people. So, Aurora seems to be a good person. As I said, Aurora in the live action does seem to be quite a bit more, how can I say, quite a bit more, a lot less damsel in distressy. Considering that throughout a fair amount of the Maleficent movies, she does seem to want to be able to protect herself, and she very much seems to be her own person. She kind of fights back in the battle. In the second one, in Once Upon a Time, she tries to do her best to be able to help fight back, and she wants to help others. And then we have Maleficent herself, who goes through the whole thing of, okay, she was a villain, and then she becomes good, and she, all this stuff. It all depends on like whose story you're paying attention to. And neither of the Maleficent movies really do too much with music. You have the background themes that you can kind of recognize a bit from the original Sleeping Beauty. They use those themes at various points in time. The credits over the original one, they do have the Once Upon a Dream, and it's much more of like a haunting melody that they do with it. As opposed to as kind of the cheery bit that they do with the original. It's a bit more of a haunting melody. I don't remember if in the second one, if there's a song at the end of the movie or not, and if they do, I don't remember what it is. I'm pretty sure there is a song at the end of the movie. I just don't remember what it is off the top of my head. So that should be about all that I have for you for the Sleeping Beauty, since I got through the Maleficent movies. Next up will be 101 Dalmatians. So that's the original. Then there is a animated sequel. Then there are the 2 live action movies with Glenn Close. And then there is the animated series that they did for 101 Dalmatians, which I really won't be talking about too much. It's there. I've seen it, but I'm not going to be talking about it that much. So, oh well. Next up will be 101 Dalmatians. That might be a 2 video thing, I'm sure. But I thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you like it. I hope that you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. Every day since my waking has been a gift, so let me do something with it. It's my turn to help someone else.